Today's arty experiment starts on a page with some fluid acrylic paint squiggles that I put down some time ago now. Actually, I'm not even sure when these went down. So it's kind of high time that this page in my junk journal gets finished, don't you think? I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do today, so I thought I'd go with a stylized person just to kick it all off. And then just let the piece kind of grow from there. Once I'd blocked out the head and shoulder shape with some white paint, I used some short pen strokes to randomly add features and form to the block shape. And I'm using the smallest nib Posca pen that I've got for this. Actually, it's the smallest that you can get. And it's perhaps a little big for the size of the image, but well, I went ahead anyway. And don't forget that you can find everything that I've used today listed in the description below the video, so just click the show more button or the triangle if you're on mobile. Once the image was down, I then shifted to the areas around it and blocked out some of it with acrylic paint. Now the colours were kind of easy to pick as I went with ones that I thought would work well with the purple and the yellow that was already on the page. And you'll find the colours also listed in the description as well. I'm working very randomly today and I'm not even using a palette for the paint. So you'll see me in places putting paint on the actual page, just very small bits, and picking it off from there, and then when I've finished, just working what's left over into the page. Now the fun of using an old page like this, where I've kind of forgotten what I've actually used on this page, you do come across some materials that will intermix with the layers you place on top. And I've got a bit of that going on here, so something black or dark grey from that underneath layer is mixing in with my bright colours that I'm putting on top. In that bottom left hand corner you can see it particularly. And it's not a big deal, and you'll see in a bit that I actually decided to run with it and add some Paynes grey to coordinate with it. But first up, I go ahead and add a little bit of shading to my figure, and it's a very small area and I'm using a brush that perhaps is just a little bit too big for it, mainly out of not wanting to stop as I'm in the flow and just grabbing for whatever I had to hand. So it's quite a good exercise in controlling the brush and only using that very tip. But I hope you can see the gist of how and where I'm putting the shading for this image, even though my camera is having a little bit of difficulty focusing at times. I'm sorry about that. I could have dumped this whole bit of footage, but I didn't want to skip it as I quite like the results, so I hope you aren't finding it too annoying. So as I'm not working to a reference of a person in front of me or a photograph, I tend to focus on the areas that I imagine that's going to be most shaded. So usually for me, I'll go with the sides of the face, the sockets, the eye sockets, under the cheekbones, under the nose and under the bottom lip as well. That's kind of my general rule of thumb for shading when you're not using references. I mean, you might have different shading that you like to use, but that's the formula I tend to go for. So when I started out colouring images as a stamper, I would pick a point where the light source would be and even place an object there to remind me that that was where my imagined light was coming from as I worked. And that's a good tip to help you practice if you need it. I've gone with Paynes grey and the light blue with a little bit of muted pink for cheeks and lips to colour this image. And again, it was more to do with what I had to hand, and this form, it's not meant to be a realistic portrait, as I'm sure you can see. Once that was done, my whole approach to the page just seemed to shift. And I did this whole thing in one go, but it does feel a little bit like it was done in sections, if that makes sense. And I fell back on perhaps some more pattern-inspired mark making and shapes to do the rest of the page. So I don't know if we have kind of like a conflict of different styles going on in this page that you might be able to spot a little bit more clearly when it's finished, but I'll leave that up to you to decide. There are lots of interesting shapes and areas on this page just from happenstance, so I'm pulling some of them out with highlights and mark making. It is still a little bit random, but then it's just a random sort of art journal page. If you're enjoying this video and watching this page come together, then please do like it and share it and become one of my subscribers as well if you aren't already. I bring out 2 videos of art inspiration, tips and techniques every week, so do hit the notification bell so that you don't miss them. Oh, and for those of you looking for feedback on how I'm getting on with the white pen, then here it is. It's still working, still going really strong, and it's definitely my main white pen at the moment. That Schminke Supra-White opaque ink is a really good opaque white, and I find that I don't really need to go over it several times like you do with some other white inks. And there will be occasions when I will go back over the line, but you can get away with not. Now, I added a little written section to this page, and this is a cross between the scribble writing that you've seen me do before and my actual writing with thought and purpose. So it does say something, but it's not meant to be read or even to be made sense of, so don't worry if you can't read it. And to be honest, when I looked back over it to see what I'd written, I didn't even remember what I'd said. I've kind of got the gist of it, and it was something about looking forward, but the future being invisible and the past being ever present. So make of that what you will. I will catch up with you all in the future in just a few days' time. Have a creative few days till then, and thank you so much for watching.